Maestro, and we are broadcasting live on YouTube, hopefully in landscape. Let me know how the video quality is, the audio quality, and hopefully we don't have the same issue with glare that we had on X. So I'm in a very active part of Paris here called Rue Mouffetard, in a general square. You can see people just sort of hang out here in this square. And then there's a lot of like restaurants, bars, clubs, and things like that for entertainment. So I thought we'll take a little walk around Paris and go from there. So I'm wondering if there's any technical issues here. There we go. Ali G in the house. All right, we got some people coming in. We got Kay. Welcome, everybody. I had just finished doing a live on X, and now we're doing one on YouTube. Mary's here. All right, everybody's making it. Thank you for the likes. I see some people already hitting the like button. That helps out a lot. So if you like these types of videos, be sure to hit that like button. It helps tremendously with the algorithm. Luann is here and says hi. Oh, more likes coming in. Thank you, guys. So we're in a part of Paris called Mouffetard, Rue Mouffetard. And as you can see, it's a very lively area. There's lots of restaurants. There's lots of music, live music. Not canned music, but actual musicians playing live. And you can see everybody just hanging out, having a good time. You can see all the beer flowing. Was waiting for you to switch over to YouTube. Couldn't join the X. I think you were full. Well, that's interesting. I don't even know what that means. I didn't even know that there was a limit to X broadcasts. So yeah, so I'm glad. That's going to be my usual format when I do these live streams. I think I'm going to generally start out on X, or sometimes I'll start out on Heckle, go to X, and then go to YouTube. Plain Crazies in the house. All right, I see more people hitting that like button. Thank you so much for hitting the like button. So let's walk around. By the way, if you have any questions, good evening, Monsieur Euro, Sweden calling. Well, hello, Sweden. How are you? So, so glad you're scoping again in Paris, just like old times. It does feel a lot like old times. I really enjoy this. I almost didn't come out tonight, but I said, you know what? I just have to make a habit of, if the weather is nice, I mean, I don't like to do it in the rain, but if it's not raining, like, just go out and just film and talk to you guys and, hopefully build up our community again. So some of this is going to be repetition for the people that were on X, but basically this is a fun area where there's a lot of nightclubs and bars and restaurants and people hang out. And please, people, if you have questions, just put them in the comments. I love answering questions. And if you have a question, there's really a good chance that somebody else in the audience also has the same question, but they haven't asked it yet. So you're not only helping yourself out, but you're helping out all the other people. So here's another gelato place. Now this gelato place is a chain, Amarino. They're all over Paris. So it's a chain place that does gelato. And you can see, even though it's April, there's quite a queue, goes all the way outside, because people love their gelato. I love gelato. So, as they say in English, I love ice cream, you love ice cream. No, ice cream for ice cream, is it? You scream, I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. That's what it is. Are you ready for the eclipse, Euro? So the eclipse is mostly going to be a North American phenomenon. So if you happen to live in North America, you are in a real treat for the eclipse. So hopefully you've made plans. I talked about it many months ago. I gave you guys yeah, ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. I couldn't remember it. Euro, what was the name of the singer and the little bistro on Rue de la Huchette? Wow, Jim, you have a good memory. So I'm going to have to think of it because I don't remember it off the top of my head. Maybe some of you guys do. But I will look it up and give you the answer. I wonder how she's doing, by the way. We used to film her basically weekly, performing in this little piano bar in another part of Paris, not too far from here. And then she stopped because she had a baby. We went in to go see her one week, and they're like, oh, she's taking time off to give a baby. What's your opinion of Otacos in Paris? I quite liked it. So Otacos is a chain restaurant in Paris that serves French original tacos. Yeah, who knew such a thing existed? Here's a little Japanese restaurant. French original tacos. And yeah, I quite liked them. So just a little heads up for Americans. Tacos in French are actually burritos. So they're called, so don't get too confused. They're called tacos, but what you get is actually a burrito. So it's not a taco, it's a burrito. But it's called a taco. And they're not the only chain because over the last few years, maybe 5 or 10 years, suddenly tacos are very popular in France, or burritos, I should say. Just after we saw her last, she left. That's right, Robin was in Paris, and Robin actually saw her in person. Robin, maybe you remember her name. That's not too confusing. Well, it's a little confusing. But anyways, it's not the only taco chain. So now we have like 2 or 3 taco chains in Paris that serve French original tacos. So Otacos is one of them. I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the other big chains. Dude, I need to go over there and make a proper taco. Allie, I think that would be most appreciated. You're going to really shock people when they have another type of taco and find out it's different than a burrito. All right, so we're going to, the next part of this YouTube, we're going to walk up this street here, which, if anybody's a fan of Emily in Paris, we're going to see a lot of the film locations from that TV show, where she lives, the little restaurant that she hangs out in, the little square near the house. So we should be able to see those actual locations. You guys might have to help me along. Complete with carne guacida and guacamole. Well, I don't know what that is, but it sounds good. I would think you have chipotle. So you know what, Tim, we do have chipotle, which was not always the case, by the way. It's I don't remember what year it came in, but it's a relatively new addition. I saw that too. It was very hot in Paris today. Yeah, it's like, I think it was like, well, let me check my watch. I don't want to give you misinformation here. Oh my God, it was hot in Paris. I didn't know it was that hot. So yeah, Paris got up to 25 degrees today. So it's only early April and it's already 25 degrees. And even though it's nighttime right now, it's 19 degrees. So this is a virtual heat wave. It was only a couple days ago, it was only like 15 degrees, 17 degrees. But we're up to 25 degrees today. So that's really good for April. Where's that little crepe spot you stopped at? The Last Scope. Last Scope. If you mean the one that I did today on X, there's 2 crepe places down that way, and there's 2 more down this way. So you're not going to have any trouble finding crepes on a street like this. Yes, it said 24 on Swedish weather app. 24, 25. My Apple Watch says 25. Terry says hi. Hi, Terry. Good to see you. So yeah, oh my God, the likes are climbing. Wow, I love you guys. We got almost as many likes as we have people. So that's good. I'm glad you guys are happy. Let's walk down this street. It's going to get more calm, but then we're going to see some really nice tourist sites, and then it's going to get busy again. So anyways, so you can see that this street is pretty narrow, pedestrian, cobblestone, and restaurant seating on my left and on my right. I got jokers on my left and jokers on my right, and I'm stuck in the middle. Which neighborhood is this, Euro, says Jim. So this neighborhood is called Muftar. Muftar is the name of the street, and it's a very famous street to go to, especially for young people who just want to have fun because of all the density, high density of bars and pubs and clubs. So yeah, thanks for saying hi there, Mary, MCQ2. And we also have Awesome Mary. We have somebody named Robin, who I'm assuming is a travel junkie. She's not only a travel junkie, she's a news junkie. So some of you may know I'm a little bit of a news junkie. I'm watching news feeds in all of my free time and sometimes talking about it and commenting on them. And then I do not a small number of radio and TV shows where I comment on the news and give my opinions and my analysis of what's going to take place. Between you, Steve, and Cupcake, I'm falling in love with Paris. Terry, that is great news. Isn't Paris a lot of fun? It really is. I mean, what I love about Paris is this, especially, is this outside life. Do you ever do podcasts on Twitter? So I have started doing spaces on Twitter. So spaces can be audio or video, and they're live, and other people can comment. So I did one last Saturday called News Around the World, and I'm planning on doing one tonight. All right, so this is sort of the very beginning of the activity that leads to Rue Muftar, where you can see everybody's outside and it's very noisy. Now we're going to transition to this very quiet neighborhood. And this is what I kind of love about Paris, because you can have an apartment on a street like this and it's completely quiet, right? So you can sleep, and if you enjoy quiet, and then you can leave your apartment, walk 100 or 200 meters, and be surrounded with nightlife and activity, bright lights and noise. So many people in Paris, it's a hot night. We're 3 degrees here and snow. Oh my God. So in Sweden, it's only 3 degrees and there's snow on the ground. Those who are ignorant of history are doomed to repeat it. I like to stay informed. I agree. I mean, I can't tell you how many parallels in history, going on right now and that I see all the time. And it's really a shame that we do repeat a lot of mistakes in history. And, I'm usually very optimistic about the future, but this is probably the most pessimistic that I have been in a while. I think if we're not careful, we could end up in a most unfortunate period of history. We are scarily close in a lot of liberal democracies to embracing some form of fascism, authoritarianism, and totalitarianism. So I'm not talking about any specific candidates or parties or anything like that, but there are some tendencies pointing to that around the world, and we have seen far-right parties. Ocean Blue said something and took it back. if you go through life with your head in the sand, you shouldn't be surprised you get a kick in the butt. Jeff, not yet. You sound like a news guy and very smart. So yeah, so we have seen the rise of the far right in a number of European countries. So they're gaining support. They're gaining influence in governments around the world. Even if they're not taking over and leading, they're getting significant influence within the government. So minister positions and a lot of coalition governments are depending on them now. And then at the same time, nothing important. At the same time, we also see a trend of conflicts that are taking place that could easily expand into greater regional conflicts, and in a worst case scenario, world war. But we have this war going on between Russia and Ukraine, which is contained right now, but one could imagine could easily expand. The rhetoric has been getting hotter and hotter, and the stakes are rising. And then, of course, we have the conflict going on in Gaza between Israel and Hamas, and that could easily expand as well. So we have two separate conflicts going on simultaneously, and either one, or in a worst case scenario, both, could easily expand into more regional conflicts. So we do have players outside those countries that are actively involved in one way or another in providing support to the warring parties. And if you listen to the rhetoric by Russia and by NATO, it keeps getting ratcheted up. So Russia has already said, for instance, that, what did they say? Oh, they said that they were willing to attack NATO assets that are dedicated or intended for Ukraine, to strike them, even outside of Ukraine. So implying that Russia says that they're intending to make strikes on NATO assets in NATO territories. So that would be obviously potential to lead to major escalation, because the West would almost be required to respond. And Russia has also indicated that they already believe that NATO has overly extended themselves in their support to Ukraine to be almost tantamount to being a combatant. So the language is rising on both sides. Hey, Euro, happy Saturday. Well, happy Saturday to you as well. Sunny day. So you can see look how much quieter this neighborhood is, even though we're only a couple hundred meters from all the activity that we saw a couple minutes ago. So we're going to be approaching the Pantheon soon. Got my comment, says Rico. Let's look back and see. Did we miss a comment? Oh, yeah, there he is. Rico says he's not a fan of Mr. Trump. Do you think Marine Le Pen is a Trump of France? Well, Marine Le Pen belongs to a party that is considered far right in France. So it depends on how far right you think Trump is. But from the French and European perspective, the party is considered far right. Now, the party has made efforts, especially over the last few years, to try to either move to the center or at least appear to have moved to the center. So they have softened some of their more hard right rhetoric. So some people believe it's genuine, And some people think it's just an act to get votes. But their history has been a history of very far-right commentary and positions. Why is it so quiet? Well, a couple of reasons. A lot of this neighborhood is residential versus like the commercial activities we saw. And some of them are buildings like this that are busy during the daytime, but not at nighttime, because they're academic institutions or things like that. So it's going to be a quiet neighborhood. And this is very typical of Paris. We have like mixes of quiet neighborhoods next to busy neighborhoods. Now this school is called, I don't even know how you would say that in English, but you can see it's the École Normale Supérieure. So this is a very important school, significant school. So this is a very like high level type of school. So this is not quite, I mean, I'm trying to think, I don't know if you really have analogies in the States. I was going to say like an Ivy League school, but we have a set of schools that are more equivalent to Ivy League schools. But it's the same idea. This is higher level education than a regular university. So we're going to get into another area now that's going to start to be more active. And look at the architecture. Isn't that quite interesting? Euro, do you have lockers and homecoming dances in high school in France? So we don't have that tradition in France of homecoming dances. We don't even have graduation. So, you know, in the States, it's like a big deal when you graduate from high school, and there's a ceremony where you wear caps and gowns and people throw up their caps and everybody gets excited and stuff like that. So we don't have anything like that. What we have instead is we have a series of exams you have to take when you finish high school, actually over 2 years. It's called a bac, and you get a bac diploma. And they're considered very difficult exams in every subject, and you have to do well. So people study very hard for these exams, and then they have to wait for the results because the results aren't available till much later. And then in the old days, they used to just post the results on a list at the school. So you would go into the school and look up the list, and you could see your grades. You could see everybody else's grades as well, by the way. There's just a big list of people's names and their marks. But now, thanks to the internet, they still post it at the school, but look at this big tractor. But they also post it online, so you don't have to make the trip in school. So that's basically the high school graduation experience in France, which is waiting for those test results. No such thing as 100, even if you get everything perfect. That's right, Robin. So in France, we use a 20-point scale. So we don't use a 100% scale. We use a 20 scale. So you can get a score from 1 to 20. And you need at least 10 to be passing. Sometimes you might be able to get by like on an 8 or a 9. But these aren't top grades, but these are sort of like typical grades. And then once you start getting over 12, 14, it's considered pretty good. And then if you get 16 or higher, it's considered very good. And a lot of French teachers will not give out a 20, even if you're perfect. And if you ask why did I get a 19 when I didn't do anything wrong? I got everything right. I'm not getting a 20, I'm getting a 19. And the logic is because no matter how good you are, you could always be better. You can always be better. You can always do better. And also, kind of opposite to the United States, teachers here do not like to give compliments. So they're very, very parsimonious with the compliments. And so in the US, I think they like to give those compliments because they see it as encouraging the students, making them feel good about themselves, making sure their self-esteem is high and that their emotions are good. So that's not the case in France. So in France, they're very parsimonious with those compliments because the concern here is that they don't want the students to get a big head. So they want the students to be modest and humble. So they're very careful with compliments and comments. Ocean Blue says, #we hate Russia. So yeah, there's a lot of concern about Russia these days. That's true. In a lot of camps. And especially, I think, in Sweden and Finland. So Sweden and Finland, historically, as Ocean Blue can tell us, historically, they've always been neutral. But because of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and because of some menacing comments, they have disrobed themselves from their traditional neutral stance, and have in fact joined NATO. In France, it's soul crushing. I think there's a middle ground. Your grandfather teaches AP French in high school. Her dream is to see Paris. I will sponsor her trip, but I know I'm able to visit due to my disability. Terry, that's such a wonderful and nice thing for you to do. So I feel warm just hearing that you're willing to do that. So thank you. I think that's such a great thing for you to do. And it's unfortunate that you can't make it here, but hopefully people like myself, Cupcake, and others can share moments of Paris that you can enjoy and have the next best thing to being there or being here. Does Macron ever pass by those streets or even go to restaurants? So I'm going to say yes. I've actually live streamed Macron. So if some of you guys have watched my earlier live streams, there's been a couple times in the past where I was able to live stream Macron. I even, look at all this graffiti here. So in this neighborhood, you notice, I do appreciate you, Euro. Thank you. Oh, Terry, what a wonderful thing to say. Nice thing to say. So you notice in the street, we haven't really seen any graffiti anywhere we went. But on this particular building, there is some graffiti. And in some other parts of Paris, graffiti is more typical, but usually not in this neighborhood. But here is an example of one. In some places, there is graffiti that is more artistic, whereas that is just like messaging, I guess we could say. But in some other areas, you have a more artistic type of graffiti where it's more like a mural or a painting. And sometimes it can be very actually beautiful and artistic and interesting. So, yeah. So, anyways, I did have on one of those Macron live streams, I got an exclusive. So I was the only one filming him. And we were at the International Air Show, which is a biennial show here in Paris. Every 2 years, we have the International Air Show here in Paris, where aviation companies show off their latest airplanes and helicopters. Sometimes, frequently, they're unveiling aircraft that have never been seen before, right? Never been available to the public. So it's a true unveiling. And so I filmed some of those new ones. And on one occasion, Macron was there, and it was the first time a particular military aircraft was unveiled to the public. So Macron and I and his bodyguards were the only people on the plane for this unveiling. So it was quite nice. So it was a good, I think, 45-minute exclusive with Macron. And well, we got to see the aircraft, and I got to interview some people from the company to talk about the new developments of it. So if you're into aviation like plane crazy, it could be very interesting. Has Macron recognized who you are? Well, not that time, because I think that was the first time I filmed him. But, you know, obviously after nearly an hour of being next to him side by side, yes. And I actually upset unintentionally. One of his bodyguards got a little unhappy with me. You've had some great experience. Yeah, I've had some, on occasion, some unusual experiences, and that was a fun one. So to answer your question, I haven't seen him on the streets of Paris, but on the other hand, that would not necessarily be unusual. So some former presidents are very well known for being out on the streets of Paris, and you can see them. Jacques Chirac, who was head of state for a while and was also a former mayor of Paris, can be seen walking the streets of Paris. He likes Saint-Germain-des-Prés area in particular, and there's one bar and restaurant that he frequently visits, and so it's very easy to catch him there. Here we have some more graffiti, but as you can see, this one is more on the artistic side. So some people would say it's nice when they do stuff like this, because it's like art. Otherwise, the wall, you can see the top part of the wall is kind of boring. But with the graffiti here, or the artwork, whatever you want to call it, it makes it very interesting. Here you have a design, and here you have a lot of famous, a lot of personalities you can see here, and a little story. You hear Americans. Could be, it's not surprising. As you walk around Paris, you hear lots of people, lots of different people. So, wow. Huh. Can't believe I did that. Hey, Euro Maestro. Hello, everyone. Oh my God, speaking of Cupcake, we were talking about you. Here she is. So Cupcake is this wonderful Parisienne who, along with me, met up with Steve, who some of you know, another YouTuber, and we walked around Paris, and she was very charming, and she provided a lot of information, and was a lot of fun. So some of you already know her, and for those you don't, you should get to know her. A lovely human being, and I had a lot of fun when we were together for a short time with Steve. When was that, Cupcake? A few weeks ago. It was quite nice, and I hope she had a good time too. And I know a lot of you guys, or at least some of you guys, are regular Steve watchers, so you're news junkies just like me. We need a Cupcake Euro video. Yeah, we should do one. Cupcake, if you're up for that sometime, let me know. Ocean Blue, I've been in France twice, and Biarritz too. I have traveled with a car through France north to south and back, seen the tower and all. So that sounds like a very nice trip, actually. I wouldn't mind that trip. Hi, Kay, we're back in Paris. We are. So Cupcake knows this area. Cupcake, we're on Rue Mouffetard. I think you and Steve went over to Rue Mouffetard. Isn't that correct? I think you did. I know you were planning on it. I don't know if you made it over there, but I think that's where you went to get some food. Good to see you, everyone, says Cupcake. So here we got a couple of people dancing to the jazz music we have over here. Yes, that's where we have the fondue and raclette. I thought so. So yeah, so they came here, they had dinner, they had a fondue and raclette in this area. And I was with them over by the Forum, Les Halles. L'assiette au fromage. Where is it? Where is l'assiette au fromage cupcake? Is it further up? Because I'm walking up Rue Mouffetard right now. Maybe Cupcake can point us in the direction of the restaurant if we haven't already passed it. When you call 911 in Paris, do they come fast like in the States? No! It's one of my biggest beefs. They do not. So I don't know if you can hear the people in that bar, but they're singing and dancing. Here's a long queue for the Grec place. It's close. Oh, okay, so we're walking in the right direction. So it's very close to the square, which is Place in French, that I started this thing up for. So, we were talking about how taco in French is burrito in English. Place is a square, and square, which is spelled like a square, is not a square. So I don't even know what you would call a square in English. I guess it's like a little garden, like a miniature park or something. Ambulance doesn't come? No, ambulances come very quickly. So ambulances come very quickly. The fire brigade comes very quickly. But the police, it's a little special situation. So I find it really annoying because I'm fortunate in that I haven't had to call the police very many times. So only maybe a couple occasions where I felt it was worthy to call the police. And what was particularly annoying for me was I would dial and then be placed on hold. And placed on hold for a long time. And I always thought, well, that's ridiculous. What if it, in my case, it wasn't an emergency that needed immediate attention. But what if it had been? What if the killer is a couple meters away from me? I can't be put on hold for 2 or 3 minutes. So I found that very shocking and surprising. And it happened to me a couple of times. And then I would hang up. And sometimes I would hang up because I didn't want to wait any longer. And what surprised me is I didn't call back to say, hey, are you okay? Now, I know in the States that if you call the police and you hang up before talking to them or they figuring out what you're calling about, they're going to call you back because they want to check up on you, whereas they don't do that here, at least not systematically. It's very disappointing. Okay, so now we're at the square, and Cupcake says that raclette place is close to this square. So I don't know if you guys remember this square from earlier. And yeah, exactly. They might even show up. So I would say the police in the States, that's one thing that they seem to do well, is they react very quickly to your phone calls and deal with them. So I don't know how that situation works in France. Because sometimes I've called and they have picked up right away, but not always. Cops, I'm having my coffee. Yeah, exactly. So sometimes what I've done is, so we don't use 911, obviously. We have a different number. But there is another number which is the same number used through all of Europe, which is 112. Now, when I call 112, I've always got an answer immediately. Somebody picks up on 112. But I think it's because 112 handles all emergencies, where the other numbers, we have them separated. Like we have a separate number for fire, separate number for the police, separate number for if you need like medical treatment. So we have all these different emergency numbers. Where in the States, 911 is used as a global emergency number, which could be basically anything. So the closest thing we have to that is 112. And if you call 112, they will answer pretty quickly. They'll listen to you and ask you questions. You know, they do that whole treatment thing. But then they will often transfer you to someone else based on what type of emergency it is. So they might transfer you to the police or to the fire brigade or whatever, depending upon how you explain the situation. What is the name of this area? I believe they ate there last time I was back. So this is the Rue Mouffard that we were talking about. And Cupcake said that she ate around here someplace. What was it called? Assiette. I forgot the name already. But she said it was right around here somewhere. So I don't see it off the right away. But there's a lot of restaurants, as you can see around here. You can see, speaking of the police, they're on patrol. Now, the other thing I will say, when the police do arrive and respond, they really do a great job. First of all, they always show up in large numbers. 3, 5, 6, 12. You see, like, there's a lot of police here. So in the States, sometimes when the police arrive, it might be just one cop or two cops. So that's not very likely to happen in France. They show up, there's going to be minimum of 3, and often many more. And once they do arrive, they really do a great job of handling the situation and taking care of the parties involved, especially the victims. And they also do a good job of, I would say, in terms of de-escalation and getting the culprit. In the United States, they're not really big on de-escalation. They are big on ending the conflict, but they will take any and all measures to do that, including fairly early and immediate use of violence, including, if necessary, harming the aggressor or even shooting and killing them. Where here, they tend to do more of a job of trying to control the situation and to de-escalate. What are the gun laws? So the gun laws here are pretty strict. So throughout Europe, with the exception of Finland, gun laws are very strict, and generally you don't really have access to guns unless you really need them. Like, you have to have a really convincing reason, and there's all kinds of restrictions, and you have to have training, etc. So we do not have, as you might not be surprised, we do not have a lot of gun crimes. So mostly when crimes are committed, they're done without the use of guns. So we don't have a lot of murders and those types of things, and certainly not very many gun deaths compared to the States. When the ambulance comes, does a doctor come on board or not? Oh, that's a good question. So I really don't know the answer about that. I suspect that there's not a doctor, but there are trained medical people. So there are, EMTs and nurses, and and they can usually do a pretty good job of stabilizing you in the ambulance while they take you to a hospital pretty quickly. And our fire brigade is very much trained in terms of providing medical assistance as well. Rico, now in the U.S., paramedics are good to get to the hospital. Yeah, I think that's the general practice. So one thing we do have here, which I guess it exists in the United States perhaps, but it's pretty rare, is our doctors make house calls. So if you're sick, you can have a doctor come to your house and make a house call. So that is not uncommon here. If you don't want to go to a hospital or a clinic, to have the doctor come to your place. So we have universal health care here, so coverage is really good. We used to have that when I was a kid. Yeah, so that used to be more common in the States decades ago. I think it's very rare right now, or almost non-existent. Zero chance of that where I live. Hard enough to see him where he's at his office. Oh, that stopped in the 60s, says Robin. So there you go. So it stopped decades ago. So we still have that here. Some people prefer that. I've luckily my health is good enough that I haven't been sick very often. Certainly not to the point of having to go to the hospital or doctor immediately. So I have never availed myself of the home visit, even though it was an option. But I've had occasion where I wanted to see the doctor immediately. And I just called up and made an appointment with my doctor and got scheduled for the same day. We can do Zoom calls. It's a new thing since the pandemic. We can do Zoom calls. Actually, I would like to do that with you guys sometime. I've done a few of those on occasions, and I would like to do more of those because a lot of fun. And we get to actually talk to each other with voice. And we can also watch videos together. So there's a guy, if you heard a voice, that was this guy's talking on his phone. You're more likely to get a vet to make a home visit than a doctor. Do you have free? So we do have free health care. So, but that's not unusual. Like everywhere in Europe has universal health care of some sort. Some are maybe better than others, but every place has it. And but it's not even just Europe. It's every industrialized, every developed country in the world besides the United States. So the United States is the only exception to that. So there's the Pantheon, by the way. There's the Pantheon. And now I'm going to show you where Emily in Paris takes place. We suck. Yeah, the U.S. does a lot of things well and gets a lot of things right. But healthcare is really not one of them. So in Europe, we provide healthcare to everyone, 100% of the population, and we have better outcomes than in the United States, and it's cheaper. So the U.S. spends twice as much as we do per person. In some instances, 3 times as much per person. Doesn't get everybody, and unfortunately doesn't get as good results. We have free if you make below a certain amount. I was on it for a while. It was good. U.S. has excellent healthcare for the haves. Well, it's true that. So I'm talking about healthcare as a system. So it's available. There are good hospitals and good doctors and good treatments available in the United States. But if you look at the system as a whole, how the population as a whole is treated, it's not very good. So the results, on the country level, are very bad. So people don't live as long. People don't recover from diseases as fast. They have relapses more often, and you're more likely to get sick or die on whole. Be honest, who has the best doctors, France or US? Well, I don't think it's a question of who has the best doctors, because obviously the United States has some excellent doctors, and France has excellent doctors too. The difference is who has access to them. So in France, everybody has access to good health care, and because of that, people live longer, and people are healthier, and people are more likely to recover from their diseases. And also we have lower incidence of disease because there's more preventative health care being done, because people are seeing their doctors on a regular basis, even when they're not sick. So they're doing regular checkups, which allows to do the prevention, and it also allows for early detection of diseases. So early detection of diseases and cancer increases the chance that you will be cured. The longer you wait to detect a disease, or the longer you wait to treat it, you decrease the chances of treating it successfully, and you increase the chance of additional harm. So in Europe and in France, we try to detect those diseases early, and we try to have that preventative medicine through checkups to prevent things from happening. And that's why the statistics here are so high. Yeah, they suggest. There are regular suggestions to visit. Cupcake, I didn't find your restaurant. I passed it. This square here. So the reason why I'm pausing this square, some of you may recognize this fountain and this square, because this is the square outside Emily's apartment in Paris. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the building she lives in. Are there any regular fans who can confirm that? But I think this might be her apartment building. I'm not 100% sure, because I haven't watched the show that much. But I think this is her building. If not, it's very close to here. And this square is definitely shown a lot in the show. So if you're an Emily in Paris fan, this is your moment. With this fountain, maybe you recognize these flowers here. And I'm sure you recognize this restaurant over here. Or you should be recognizing these restaurants, because they show these restaurant fronts prominently in the show. So does this look familiar to anyone? You can't recognize it, but it looks familiar. It should look familiar because this is the square. I think this is the building. I think this is the restaurant. In fact, I'm almost 100% sure this is the main restaurant in the show. And there's another one here you can't see very well because it's boarded up right now at nighttime. But in the daytime, you probably recognize that. The one with the red awning, yes, you should recognize the one with the red awning. And during the daytime, there's a blue one here, but it's covered up right now at nighttime. But the boulangerie and the patisserie. So right now we are in I think we're in the 5th. Oops. Speaking of the police, there's a French police car. So you notice, not just 2 people in the car. There's like 3 or 5. So yeah, this is the 5th. Do they have drag queen shows? I don't know. Cupcake, do we have drag queen shows? I assume that we do, but I don't know where they are, and I've never actually heard of them. So I might just be making an unfounded assumption. But I suspect that we do. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all that we do. American healthcare starts with a poor quality of food, prepackaged, shelf-stable foods with high sugars. Well, that's true too. So it's not just the medical treatment, but the whole approach to healthcare is very different. Where here, people are very concerned about what people eat. If people don't eat healthy here, it's like an intentional choice, but it's very well taught, and it's part of the culture to eat high quality food, fresh food. We're really into everything has to be fresh, fresh, fresh. So we go to the bakery every morning to get fresh bread. So we don't wait to, we don't get bread that's a day old. We get, the bakers get in at 3 or 4 in the morning, or whenever it is that they get in super early and start baking that bread so that we can go in there early in the morning and get it. And then the ingredients all have to be fresh. We want fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and fresh ingredients. Hey, Euro. Hey there. So here's the front of the Pantheon. So you can see the Pantheon is very close to Emily in Paris, the residential shots. Of course, she's all over Paris. If you watch the show, she goes to all the different neighborhoods. So this building that we're looking at right now, so this building here is the Pantheon with that big dome at top that I showed you earlier. And this building over here is a law school. So this is a university law school. There's a law library over there. And then over on this side, this is City Hall. And you might say to me, well, that City Hall looks a lot smaller than the City Hall I showed before. And that's true, because this City Hall is not for the city of Paris, but this City Hall here is just for this neighborhood. So we have 20 districts in Paris. So they're called arrondissements, 20 districts. And each district has its own City Hall, like this building here. So this building doesn't serve the whole city, it serves just this district. But we do have another City Hall, which some of you have seen, which is much bigger than this one, and that one serves the whole city. Isn't Voltaire buried at the Pantheon? So he is. So let me show you this building. I don't know, can you guys, I don't know if you can see the writing at the top there, but it says to the great men, the country is grateful. I'm trying to think of a better word for it in English, but the country is indebted and respects the great men. And so the tombs of the great men, which includes women, of course, are here. Yeah, it's too dark. I was afraid of that. I can barely see it on my phone, but I think if I zoom in, you can kind of see it. But anyways, yeah, the tombs of the great men are here underground. So if you're in Paris, if you're into history, it's worth checking out. And you have people like Voltaire. So you have, who are these great men? So they come from a variety of backgrounds. So they can be great writers like Voltaire, but you also have great statesmen. You have great scientists. So Pierre and Marie Curie have their tombs here as well. So if you made a big impact on the country, whether it's in the politics, the sciences, or the arts, you might be honored by having your tomb here. So the building was originally designed to be a church, but construction was started just before the French Revolution and was terminated around the time of the French Revolution. So it wasn't consecrated as a church because they were anti-church at the time. So they used it as a state religion, if you will, of honoring the great people. And there was a time during the French Revolution where they replaced traditional religions with what was called the Age of Reason. And they even had a goddess for the Age of Reason. So for a while they created sort of a secular religion, if you'd like, because this is all part of the Enlightenment. And then at some point it got very radical, as some of you might know or remember. And some of the virtues of the French Revolution started getting exaggerated. And the excessive liberty started becoming a sort of own form of totalitarianism, which led to the execution of a lot of people. Yeah, we used to be enlightened. Dumas, Hugo, Camus, all at the Pantheon. That's right, Tusk. So many famous people there. Yeah, so that was the Enlightenment was obviously a big important turning point in world history, and particularly in European history, which was the reaction against the systems of monarchy and religion, and the adoption of science and rationalism. And so during that time it became very important to embrace science and rationality in decisions versus tradition and faith and things like that. But it also embraced some important concepts such as freedom of expression, freedom of religion. So rather than having an official religion imposed upon you by the state, typically by the king, that you should be free to worship or not worship as you please. I really enjoy your walks in Paris. I would like you to repeat my question. Sorry. Okay, sure. Let's repeat your question. Let's see if I can find it. Do they have Capitol Hill in Paris? Senators and representatives. So that's a great question. So Paris is the capital of France. And so we do have buildings which house the senators. They're called senators. We have a Senate. And then we have another building which houses the lower house, the parliament. And we do have representatives there. So in English, they would be called like members of parliament, just like in the UK, MP. And then the French equivalent of that is called a député. And those are in Paris. Interestingly enough, that you should ask that question because it's not that far from here. In fact, I can see it from here. So in about 100 meters, there is a famous garden. We'll see the gates in a minute, called the Luxembourg Gardens. And inside the Luxembourg Gardens, we have the Senate, the French Senate. So the garden is actually the gardens of the Senate, which they have made available to the public. So that's where the senators are. And then the lower house, the parliament, not too far, little further down, but not too far away. It's called the Assemblée Nationale, the National Assembly. So interestingly enough, the National Assembly is the name of the parliament for France. So that's where the prime minister is a member of the National Assembly. And in Quebec, for people who've been to Quebec, their parliament is also called the National Assembly. So they use the same name as the French Parliament, as an extra emphasis to people that don't understand that Quebec is a nation with a National Assembly. And in their legislation, they refer to themselves as l'État, the state, just like France refers to itself as the state. So before this area of enlightenment, we had another period in history where countries believed in absolute monarchy, the divine rights of kings, and there was no separation between the state and the king. The king was the state. And so Louis XIV was very famous for having said, l'État, c'est moi. So the state is me. So the interest of the state and the interest of the king were one and the same thing. And so the king had absolute power. Macron and his mommy wife. Yes, so Macron is there, and Tusk is making a reference to the fact that Macron's wife is slightly older than Macron. So there is a very slight age difference between the two. Euro's wonderful. I enjoyed our walk with Steve a lot. Cupcake, you were fantastic. I can't say enough about you. Your prime minister is so young and he's very cutie. Lol. Yeah, so he is relatively on the young side, and he came to power very young. And yes, and yeah, some people like the way he looks, just like the Prime Minister of Canada, also relatively young, and some people think he's cute. Yeah. Unlike the United States, where the current president is very old, and his challenger in this election is also very old. So the one thing that undoubtedly will happen in November, whoever is elected is going to be very old. And Jean-Luc Mélenchon said, La République, c'est moi. Ah, very important, Cupcake. Yes, the Republic is me. So yeah, there's just very important distinctions. And, to this day, the United Kingdom, right, is still a kingdom, obviously. It has a king. It has a monarch. It was Queen Elizabeth II for a long time. Now it's King Charles III. And so he still is the embodiment of the state. So he is the head of state. Everything that is done in the kingdom is done in his name. So in the United States, if you go to trial, it's the government against you, the United States versus you. Or it can be the people in some jurisdictions, the people versus you, or the state versus you. But in the United Kingdom, it's the crown. It's you versus the crown. And everything is done in the crown's name, in the king's name. And that's why, for instance, King Charles doesn't have a passport. Because the passports are issued by the king to his subjects. Not his citizens, but his subjects. So the king doesn't have a passport. And he doesn't have a driver's license. He doesn't need these things. Now the president has a passport and presumably a driver's license, although he's probably not going to drive very often. Does he need it before he was king? You know, that's a really good question. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez, monsieur? Joe drives his Corvette. Yeah, apparently. Macron is 46. Brigitte Macron is 70. Yeah, that's right. So she's roughly 25 years older. Attention! Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. There's some drunk guy following me. So I'm just walking a little quicker to try to distance myself from him. Did you get snapped? What does snapped mean? I don't know. I don't know what that means. No, I don't think he's trying to snatch my phone. I don't think so. But he is following me, and he's trying to be disruptive. So I may just... I think I'm going to switch sides of the street to get as far away from him as possible. Yeah, I'm crossing the street. He's really a nuisance because he can barely walk, or at least in a stable fashion. But every time I slow down, he tries to approach, and I think he's trying to either block the phone or worse. So anyways, you see some tents across the street. So a few times a year we have these sales that are done by tents that you see here, and they sell like artwork and things like that. Yeah, I think he's French. He's French and he's drunk. And he's by himself, so it's not even a social drunk. So you know, that's the thing about drunks is, he's back. I crossed back to his side of the street. Probably a mistake, but I wanted to show you these buildings. So these are the vestiges of the Roman baths. So, you know, the Roman Empire used to extend throughout France and Paris. And so, you know, Julius Caesar was here. Pepper spray works good. I don't have pepper spray, and pepper spray is illegal here. So if I had it, I would be the one to get in trouble for having it as well as for using it. Yeah, it's totally illegal. So I don't have it, of course. But yeah, it would come in handy in situations like that. Just spray the guy and say, you know, get lost. But I did the next best thing, which is to walk away. So I don't even see him anymore. So I guess he has given up. So that's good. So the booksellers win their fight to stay put during the Olympics. You know, it's a good question. I don't know the answer. I really should know the answer, but I don't know the answer. It would be great if they won that. I could see why the government would want to shut them down, though, during the Olympics. So I think she's talking about these, we call them bouquinistes. They're these, like, booksellers that are lined up along the sides of the river. Please show McDonald's. All right, so here is a French McDonald's. So very similar to American McDonald's. I actually used to think that they were the same, but I watched a YouTube video that explained that they're actually quite different. So I didn't realize that. I just watched a video recently on the subject. So apparently, American McDonald's are based on a more continuous service and a lot of takeout and drive-through. So the drive-through and the takeout component is very important, and it's anytime during the day. Where the French McDonald's are geared more around meal times, and people dine in groups, in families and in groups. So it's more of a dining experience. So that's one of the big differences, and very light at other times. Yeah, grab and go, don't want to be seen there. So although they do have takeout here and even delivery, it's a very small component. It's not how French people use McDonald's. They go in at mealtime and have a meal in a group, or I think mostly groups, but I'll say sometimes maybe with families. But I think it's even less so families, it's more of a group thing. Yeah. So, and because of that, apparently they have to make changes. And of course, the other big change is, even though it's McDonald's, they're going to have to use more fresh ingredients. And so if you look at the ingredient list, it's very different. More fresh ingredients, fewer ingredients. Stay safe here. We're going to go wash my car and grab dinner. All right, Allie, thanks for stopping in. So I'm not familiar with the story about removing them, but Robin is, and apparently they were trying to remove them, I think just for the Olympics, and that they were fighting that, and I don't know who won. Security reasons for Olympics, yeah. So for security, it makes sense, because those booksellers, they're actually, I can show you in a few minutes, they're actually right along the side of the river, right? And so a lot of the events are planned on that river for the Olympics. So swimming events will be in the river. The opening ceremony is along the river. So I could see from a security perspective why it would complicate things to have that open during the Olympics. Okay, so you can see this area here, very touristy, lots of restaurants, and mostly pedestrian, although I see a car trying to get through. It's a little unusual. And here we have candy. So this is the place to come if you want a lot of candy. Little pirates here, and all kinds of brightly colored candies that you can bag. So here's a Japanese buffet restaurant. So this place, as you can see, has a lot of restaurants, and they're all different nationalities. So there's the Greek restaurants and Japanese restaurants, Korean restaurants. We have some nice churches. So this neighborhood here is right next to the Place Saint-Michel, so St. Michael's Square, and Notre Dame. So just like the previous area, it's lots and lots of restaurants. If I want Reese's, can I find some? You can find Reese's. That's a lot of barges. Yeah, so the opening ceremony, so it's going to be the first time in Olympic history. So the opening ceremony, instead of being in a stadium, traditionally it's in a stadium, so you have to get tickets, and only a very limited number can see it. Paris, for the first time this year, is going to do the opening ceremony on the river. So the national delegations will be on boats, on barges, that will go down the river and people will be lined up along the riverbanks to watch the ceremonies. So ideally, it should be very picturesque and different, and it should allow a lot of people to be able to watch the opening ceremony. John says, long time no see since Periscope. Hi from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Hi all. Well, hi John. Thanks so much for stopping in. I'm a big fan of Toronto. I've been there many times, and I had a lot of fun there. And one of the things I always do when I'm in the Toronto area is I go over to Canada's Wonderland, which is not in Toronto, but not too far from Toronto, up near Maple. So it's not a long drive to get to Canada's Wonderland, which is an amusement park. It has a few roller coasters and is a lot of fun. And as I like roller coasters, I always try to visit the parks in the city. I really hope Steve Lookner or another national U.S. News can accept you as a Paris correspondent covering the Olympics. Yeah, so I plan to be here during the Olympics and do a lot of live streams. And I would love to hook up with Steve or other people that want to correspond in place where I'll be able to show live videos of Paris during the Olympics, which could be a lot of fun. So earlier we talked about piano bars in Paris, and we talked about a particular singer who we used to live stream. So this is the street that her piano bar was located on, which we often filmed. So you can see the crowds out here on a Saturday night. And you can see this one in particular called Caveau de la Huchette. It's very interesting. It has a cave underground, which a lot of these places do. It's like a vaulted room underground. So it's very picturesque. And look how long the queue is to get into that one bar. Even though there's many bars and clubs on this street, look how long the queue is for this one in particular. And it doesn't end here. It wraps around the block. So it goes down the other block. So it's a very long queue. This place has a queue too. It's a much shorter one, but it has a little queue and or line, as you say in the States. And in this one, you'll see a lot of people wearing masks and costumes. The other one, once or twice a month, they do costumes as well. The other one does medieval costumes. So a couple times a month, people dress up in medieval garb. So if you can imagine, it's a medieval theme. Everybody's dressed up in clothing from the Middle Ages. It's a requirement on those nights to go into the bar to be wearing Middle Age clothing. So you can't wear modern clothing. You have to wear your Middle Age clothing. Everybody's dressed up. The staff's dressed up. And you've never waited in line to get in the bar. Can't imagine it. So that's a very frequent occurrence for me, depending upon the bar. So it's very common in Paris, in London, in New York. For certain bars and clubs, you have to wait in a very long queue to get in. And in some of them, they're very selective. So just because you're in the queue doesn't mean you're even going to be allowed inside. They literally pick and choose who is going to come in. So you can wait in the long line, and when you finally get up to the door, they'll tell you no, not you. Or if you're lucky, they'll say, yep, you can come in. So Studio 54 in New York used to be a big disco in New York. And one of the things it was famous for was having those long lines and having doormen with very particular taste, shall we say. And people were told yes or no. The pick and choose sounds sad, not even to get it all. Yeah, unfortunately, that is the case. Now, some clubs are a little bit more democratic and let just about everybody in, and others have a very strict standard. Oftentimes, you do not even know what that standard is. Hello.
I'm a
French people. Très bien. Right, merci. So there's some people wanting to get on camera. So we had a Frenchman waving to us, wanting to get on. And then we had some, she sounded American, waving to get on. Always went into the back door at 53rd Street. So Tuss knew how to get into 54th Street, apparently. But yeah, Studio 54 was famous for its policy of letting people in and rejecting people. And they had a very eclectic crowd. So it wasn't easy always to determine whether you were going to get in or not. And even if you were celebrity, didn't mean you were necessarily going to get in. So Studio 54 always had a mix of all kinds of different people, interesting people, regular people, famous people. There was one woman in particular, an elderly woman, who would go almost every night, and she sort of became a celebrity because she was a regular person, senior woman, but she used to like to go to the club, and she became known for that. And they had people like Michael Jackson and all the top celebrities going to Studio 54, dancing and hanging out with other people. It was also kind of well known for having a lot of drugs. And there was one night that Cher turned up, and the doorman told Cher she's not getting in. No. So, she wanted to go in, but the doorman said no. So Cher said, "Oh, I don't think you know who I am." Right? So she's thinking she's getting turned down because this lowly doorman doesn't know that she's Cher, and she just has to let herself known. So she said, "Yeah, I don't think you know who I am." And the doorman responded saying, "I know exactly who you are. You're Cher, and you're not getting in." So even superstar celebrity status did not guarantee that you were going to get in. People got in and rejected all the time. There were instances in the winter in New York where sometimes it snows, and they told people that wanted to get in, "We'll let you in, but first you have to get naked outside in the snow." And people would do it because they wanted to go inside to Studio 54 so bad that they would be willing to get naked in the freezing cold and in the snow in the middle of New York City to have that opportunity to go inside. And there was another instance in Studio 54 where this long stretch, so desperate, sad. You think that's bad? I'll give you another example. It's even worse. And this is a true story. So this long stretch limousine pulls up in front of the Studio 54. So this is a trick a lot of people try to use to get into fancy clubs, is they pull up in a super expensive car or stretch limo. It doesn't always work. Certainly doesn't work at the Studio 54. So this couple, doorman used to like to let in Midwestern tourists. Yeah. So you didn't have to be famous. They let in like regular people as well. Sounds like something being hidden inside there from public not to know. Well, there was a lot of A lot of things going on. I wouldn't say it was necessarily hidden because they were pretty open about it. So drugs were readily available inside Studio 54. It's very well known. And the drugs were provided by the bartenders. So when you would go up to the bar, you could get a drink, or you could go get Coke or whatever other drugs they had available. So it was well known that this was the case, and they even had a giant clock on the wall where the what do you call it? The hands of the clock were Coke spoons, giant Coke spoons on a clock on the wall. So it was very clear. I wouldn't say they were exactly hiding it. But anyways, why was it so famous, the one with the long line? The one in Paris or the Studio 54? The 80s. Yeah. So this is the 80s. So, it's sort of a totally different mentality. So the United States, shed off its puritanical robes for a short moment there in the 80s, and then they put them back on again. But so this stretch limo pulls up in front of Studio 54, and out comes a couple dressed to the nines, and the couple is newlyweds. They just got married that day. This is their wedding night. And what better way to celebrate your wedding night than to dance at Studio 54? So that was their plan. So the couple gets out. The man is dressed impeccably. The woman is dressed wonderfully. They're there to celebrate their wedding night. They just got married at Studio 54. And what does the doorman say? What time is your future broadcast and how can we find it? Would be greatly appreciated, says Matt. So last time I did the broadcast Saturday around, what time was it? 2, 4, around 8 o'clock Eastern time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So 8 o'clock New York time, which would be 5 o'clock Pacific time. So I'll probably shoot for around that time. Sometimes I started an hour earlier at 7, but I kind of like that 8 o'clock time frame. So I'm going to shoot for that. And then if it's popular, I'll make it a regular thing. All right, so we got the couple, right? Imagine this, Studio 54. They just got married. The basement was a makeout pit. Yes! So the basement was very famous. For a lot of reasons, make out and drugs. But anyways, so this long stretch limousine pulls up. The couple pulls out. Wedding night, they just got married, and they go up. They try to go inside the club, and the doorman tells the groom, "I'll tell you what. You can go inside the club, but not your wife, just you." So now the guy has to make a decision. It's his wedding night. He just got married to this beautiful woman, and he has the chance of their dreams to go into Studio 54. But if he does, he has to go alone and ditch his wife. What would you do? I'll tell you what he did. He said to his wife, "See ya." He went inside. He's like, "I'm going into this club." What do you guys think about that? It's his wedding night. I wonder how his wife felt. Do you think she would be upset? I think it's a true story. I'll tell you why I think it's a true story. Because I read it in a respected journal. So hopefully they didn't make it up. So I think it's true. Because they were citing the excesses of Studio 54. But I'll tell you, if it did happen, that's very ballsy of the guy, especially on his wedding night. Gregory says it did. Yeah, I mean, I know I've read it as a true story, so I never checked it out or verified it, but I assume it's a true story. But it's very ballsy, and I think most women would not be very understanding of their husband abandoning them on their wedding night, even for a great club. One lady died in the air vents trying to get in. I didn't know that. That's awful. How can we find Twitter Spaces? Okay, so Twitter Spaces. So if you just go to your Twitter feed, so if you can find Euro Maestro, it'll be posted as a link right on my Twitter feed saying join Spaces. You can't do it from an iPad, but you can do it from a phone or from a computer, like a real computer laptop, but not from an iPad. And you can join, and you can talk, or you can listen, or you can do both. It's better for the people talk if they also listen. So look at this police car trying to come down this pedestrian street. So you notice he has to go very slow because there's people on all the sides. Have you had discussion on the 4B movement? I haven't, Robin. If you want to talk about that, that would be great. So you notice in this police car, there are 3 policemen, and then there's some on foot. Again, 1, 2, 3 policemen. So in the United States, typically police work in pairs, and in some jurisdictions they work alone. So 1 police officer, or sometimes 2. But in France, it's always a minimum of 3. 3, 5, 6. The Periscope icon returns. Hi, Mex. The same Twitter account. It is the same Twitter account. I use Euro Maestro, and we will be doing a Spaces later tonight. We will talk about news events. All views are welcome. So I had one last week. There were a lot of people on the left in the broadcast, a lot of what Americans call liberals, people on the left, and there were a few people on the right, and some people were on the left were upset that there were people from the right expressing different views. So I'm going to make it very clear to people up front, I have no problem with people with different views being expressed. I actually prefer it. I really not a big fan of echo chambers where we all just agree and say yes, yes, yes. So if you don't like a mixed view space, it's probably not for you. If you get offended or triggered because there's different views, likely there are going to be different views expressed. I think it's important to hear different views, and if you disagree with them, to tell them why they're wrong. Lots of times we don't all have access to the same information, and we view information differently. So I find it good to share those if you can be civil about it. And it's interesting. Are you in TikTok? I technically have a TikTok account, but I haven't used it. The hottest nights were actually not on weekends. The Olympic crowds are going to be a nightmare. Yeah, so the one in Paris, the one you walked by, why was that line? Oh, it's just a very popular place. It's very scenic because it has these vaulted, I'm not sure for the term of them in English, but like underground, they have like these vaulted caves, like vaulted basements. So it looks very cool, basically. There's a gelato place. You see, it's very popular tonight.
Oh no!
Excuse me. So here's the piano bar that we were talking about earlier. Robin was in this piano bar. You can see it's actually been renamed. Now it's a Latin bar. but it used to be a piano bar, and this is where several nights a week they would have a pianist and a singer, and it looks like it's been transformed into a Latin bar. So it seems like there's still music and dancing, but it's a little different. Dorman, no studio. That was not a Studio 54 place, no. A movement from South Korea based on a very popular movie. Women in South Korea are abstaining from dating, marriage, sex, and children. All of these start with B, the 4 B's. Yeah, so you do get these interesting movements that pop up from time to time. And I mean, that's been the case for at least 200 years. I don't know if they had them prior to that, but even in the States in like the 18th and 19th century, they had movements like the Shakers. So the Shakers was like this religious movement in the United States, and they did not believe in having children, so they completely abstained from sex. So you can imagine a religious movement like that often ends up dying out because there's no children to replace people. So you have to constantly rely on converts. I enjoy your works. Heard about you from Steve. Well, Matt, that's amazing. I'm so happy. Yeah, so I used to, just to give you some background, I used to do these walk and talks from wherever I was. I started 9 years ago in 2015, and I used to do them every day. I used to do them several times a day, and back then I would typically do like special events, special parties, celebrity events, and then over time I started doing these just walk around the neighborhoods, walk and talks. She divorced him the next day, says Awesome Mary. Yeah, I would think, I don't know what happened to that couple, but I would think that would be a really sore spot, especially since the wedding night is such an important night, and the idea of choosing a club to go to alone over your wife. I mean, I understand it's Studio 54, but still, I think it's kind of hard to justify. So even if she said okay at the time, I think it would be a sore spot for a long time. I don't think I could do it. I can't see myself saying, yeah, I'm going to go into the club. But, as Robin said, that was the 80s, and there was a whole different mentality going on in the 80s, which is probably hard for us today to even understand. But they were sort of all about those excesses in terms of music, in terms of drugs, in terms of style. It was a very wild period of time. Matt says, I'm a fan of Fox News. Is there a Fox News headquarters in Paris? That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to it. I've never seen it. I'm not familiar with it. So I have a feeling that there isn't one, but maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But when I was in New York, I used to do some live streams from New York, and often on many occasions, I had filmed in front of the Fox News headquarters in New York. I also did the NBC Today show and Good Morning America. So some of you recall, we actually went into the studio for the Today Show, which is an NBC show, and we got to do all the things that the guests do there. Went to the green room, went on the set while they were doing the show, and I filmed the talent and what it looks like to be on the set. So that was a lot of fun. And we drove around with one of their correspondents. So he showed us what he does to prepare for the show. He was a very interesting guy. Some of you might remember. He was a sneakerhead, as they call them. So he is really into trainers, which the Americans call sneakers, and had a large collection of them in all kinds of different colors and styles and whatnot. He was very, very into fashion as well, and made a lot of loud fashion statements with bold colors, as some of you might remember. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'll give a shout out to all the people that are here from Steve. I really appreciate it. I'd rather be with family and friends and my wife, husband on my wedding night than a nightclub. I know, Cupcake. I mean, half the fun of being at a nightclub is being with your friends, right? So to have to go into a nightclub alone, it for me it diminishes part of the experience. As fun as it was. I remember one time we were a group and we went to one of these fancy nightclubs for models. So it was a model hangout, and we were a group of about 10 of us, I think, roughly 10 people. And the doorman did one of those things with us, which he said the group can come in, all except one person. So one person was excluded, and everybody else can come in. And so as a group, we had to decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to go into this club and abandon a person, or are we all just going to leave? And we decided as a group to not go into the club. So none of us went in. We were like, if you can't let one of us in, none of us are going in. So we made the opposite decision of that man I was talking about earlier who went in without his wife. Roughly 9 of us or so didn't go in because one person couldn't, which I think is a nice, nice solidarity with your friends. CNews is the French equivalent of Fox News. Is it? have to check out CNews a little bit more. But yeah, in the UK now they have a new service which is very much to the right, which is like Fox News. According to Google, everyone in or no one in. I agree, Euro. I think Cupcake. I think it was really important. And even though we really wanted to go to that club, we had a model in our group. It was a favorite club of some of the people in the group. We didn't feel right about leaving one person out. What is the one person supposed to do? Like go home or something? So it was okay. We just went somewhere else. We just went to another club that didn't have a rule like that. So it's okay. We can go to the other club another night. So yeah. So the model that was with us was a French woman, and she was dating a guy. I'm trying to think, where was he from? I think he was from the States or the UK, something like that. Oh, look at this passage. We have a lot of these passages in Paris. Let me walk through it so you can see what I'm talking about. So you see it's kind of a nice passage off the main street, and you have little shops and housing, and it's a way to cut through from one side of the street to another. And we have these throughout Paris. Some of them are more commercial than this one. This one is slightly commercial, mostly residential. Some of them are like completely commercial. And they're nice and quiet. There's obviously no traffic. It's all foot traffic. I followed you on Twitter. Looking forward to your podcast. Okay, awesome. Here's a little cabaret that I'm not familiar with. The Cabaret of Wonders, it's called, or what it would be called in English. The Cabaret of Marvels. So we'd have to check that out sometime. And so now you have this side street. So you see it's a nice, quiet side street that leads to a lot of active social life. There's, you can see one of the electric bikes humming by. Whew. Hello, Maestro. And Cupcake in Paris. I already watched your channels. Cupcake now will subscribe for Euro. Hi. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, if you guys can share this out and hit the like button, that would be very much appreciated. And if you subscribe, super appreciated. I'm really trying to build my subscriber numbers up on YouTube. I used to have a lot of followers and subscribers on other platforms that no longer exist. So, on Periscope, I had tens of thousands of followers, like close to 100,000 followers. Millions on some other platforms, like Google Plus. And now I only have a small number on YouTube, so I'd like to build that up. Hey, Wonka, welcome to Euro's live stream. Oh, Cupcake, thank you. Cupcake met with Steve. Did you meet her? I did meet Cupcake. She was wonderful. So I met up first with Steve, and we did a live stream together on his channel, and we talked and walked around a bit. And after that one ended, we both went up and met up with Cupcake, and we walked around and talked a little bit before they went to dinner, and they did their live stream. So it was a great opportunity to meet and talk and just have a good time. I watched Cupcake stream last week on the cruise. You and her for meetup stream soon, I hope. Oh yeah, we just talked about it actually earlier in the stream. So I think we will do another meetup and another live stream, because that would be a lot of fun. And I would certainly enjoy it. I have been subscribed to Euro since the Periscope days. Dutchy Cherise, wow, that's a long time. So Periscope was a live stream platform that was owned by Twitter. So it was a video and audio platform. And that started 9 years ago. And I started live streaming back then. For the first couple of years, I was doing it daily. And then I started doing it less frequently. But yeah, the first couple of years were crazy. And we did a lot of like really crazy things. A lot of backstage events. Embassy parties. It was a lot of fun. We'll try and do a live stream together with you, Maestro, soon. Yeah, Cupcake, just contact me on Twitter and we'll set up a time that's convenient for you. Periscope was really good in the beginning. They had some technical issues that they were very slow to fix, but in terms of content, especially the first 2 years, was really good. There was a lot of people very innovative, creative. We had a guy in Australia that was doing live streams, Mitch, from under the water and everything else. You're knowing a lot of info, Euro Maestro. Thank you, Wonka. We'll do. Evelyn in Maine is here. Hi. Hello, Evelyn. So let me show you this neighborhood, because this is the Place Saint-Michel area. You can see the architecture is very interesting. It's a lot of pedestrian. Oh, I got to show you. Oh, tacos. So Travel Junkie asked about this earlier. Some of you were asking, what are these French tacos? So here is a French taco place. This is a chain called Old Tacos. And there are other chains that also specialize in tacos. So tacos are pretty popular and well known in the US and is in France now. And you notice the sign says, I don't know if you can read it actually, original French tacos. So these are original French tacos. You got to know Maestro through Periscope and others through Orion, Chantal TV, Paris Barclair, Mokhtar, Melvino, and much more. I met Louise Poppy when she visited Toronto from New Zealand. Wow, those are some amazing people. And you're right, there were so many amazing people on Periscope. You mentioned a whole bunch of them. Louise Poppy, definitely one of them. She used to post from New Zealand, as you said. She's still posting. And Mitch was from Australia. I mentioned him. But there were literally people from all around the world. And back in the day, I used to travel around to many places and live stream. So I did live streams from Dubai and from Jordan and from the Cape Canaveral in the United States and New York and from London and all around Europe. And it was a lot of fun. I remember Melvinio, y'all are going to meet. I remember, I don't think we met. So I did meet a lot of the Periscopers, of course. I went to a Periscope summit in New York City where a bunch of us hung out. Some of us stayed afterwards. If some of you guys remember Alex from London, Alex and I stayed in New York for another week or two after the Periscope summit. I think he stayed for a week. I think I stayed for 2 weeks, but it was a lot of fun. Great memories. Yeah, we did so many fun things in New York. We did a team hide and seek. That was a lot of fun. We did a helicopter tour of Manhattan, and we live streamed that. We filmed the Periscope Summit, of course, but we also filmed like the Ad Week in New York, which is big for advertisers. And I got an exclusive that I filmed in New York with the star of Mr. Robot. I don't know if anybody remembers that show. He went on to do other things, including he was the star of Bohemian Rhapsody, a film about Queen. So he did he did sort of a meet and greet, I guess. He did a little talk over in the Rainbow Room in New York, which is a great place, by the way. If you're ever in New York, go to the Rainbow Room. And so I did a live stream from the Rainbow Room with the star of Bohemian Rhapsody, the star of Mr. Robot. And he was kind enough to give us an exclusive interview. Layla and Euro, you are nearly directly underneath me on the other side of the planet. Yes. So those are called the antipodes. So the position on the opposite side of the planet. So if you imagine if we drilled a hole right here through the Earth to the other side in a straight line, wherever we come out is the antipode. So let me ask you a question. Suppose we actually did drill a hole here, right where I'm standing. We drilled a hole that went through the entire planet and came out the other side. What would happen if I jumped into that hole? Who can tell me? What would happen if you jumped into a hole that went to the other side of the planet? Something very interesting happens. If you understand physics, you probably have a good idea, maybe, of what happens. What happens when you jump off a tall building or you jump out of an airplane, right? You start heading towards the Earth and your speed keeps accelerating. You keep going faster and faster till you hit the ground, unless you have a parachute, which will slow you down. Otherwise, you die. So this is a beautiful fountain here. This is the Place Saint-Michel. French tacos are a bit different than Taco Bell tacos. They're more like a flat burrito or flat wraps. Maybe Euro can show us if he walks past tacos again. So, Cupcake is absolutely right. And we even talked about that earlier. I don't think Cupcake was here at the time. So, when we're talking about French tacos, they are not like American tacos. They are like American burritos. So they are a soft shell type of burrito or wrap. And that's what's meant by a taco. We'll walk by it. I don't know if we'll be able to see what they look like, but maybe we will. Rive gauche. So Paris has a right bank and left bank. So this place is called the left bank. Rive gauche means left bank in French. So yeah, let's walk by. I thought those people were eating tacos, but they were eating crepes. Oh, thanks. I do like burritos and fajitas. So if you like burritos and fajitas, yeah, you're going to like the French taco then, because that's basically what it is. And yeah, they're very popular. And there's at least like 2 or 3 big French taco chains now. There's an old taco at Les Halles, and nearby is another one. You must become weightless as you go by the center of the earth. Somebody has figured it out. So yeah, exactly. Gravity pulls you towards the center of the earth. So it's true that you accelerate. So if we ignore terminal velocity and air resistance and all those things, you're going to continue to accelerate. But once you get to the center of the earth, actually, you experience weightlessness the entire time that you're falling. Whenever you're in free fall, you experience weightlessness. So when you jump out of an airplane or off a building, as you're falling to the ground, you do not have a sensation of gravity because you are weightless. So here's a picture of what these French tacos look like. So there's the mythic burger, the mythic taco, the famous taco, the legendary taco, and the Montagnard taco. And so you can choose your base, what type of meats you want, what type of sauce you want, what type of extras you want, and you make your own taco. They have fondue if you like melted cheese. That's how much they cost. So the price depends if you want 1 meat, 2 meats, or 3 meats. They also have a bowl if you don't want to have an actual taco. So there you go. That's what they look like. Raclette like Steve had, but on a taco. Yummy. They're usually French fries. Oh, yes. So usually we have chips, as the British would call them, or French fries, as the Americans call them, inside the taco. And this is very common in France when you have a wrap, or if you go to what we call the Greek places, when they say the thing is served with fries, very often the fries are not necessarily on the side, but they are inside the taco or the wrap with the meat. Sometimes it's both, inside and on the side. So that's very common. What I loved about France is that they have gratin. You like it. So I'm a big fan of cheese. So I love cheese. So if cheese is on top or melted, I like cheese. Yeah. So yeah, I don't have any problems with the cheese. So like onion soup, a lot of people like to have onion soup when they visit France, and the cheese is melted on top of the soup. which is called gratiné in French, and it's called au gratin in English. And yeah, you have this like layer of thick cheese on top of your onion soup. And the best part of onion soup is the cheese. Or it's a very good part. The broth is very good though, usually. And there'll be like croutons or something inside, as well as some onion strips. So it's a really good taste and a good way to have soup. All this talk of food is starting to make me hungry. Or maybe it's my walk. So this is the fountain I was telling you about, called Saint-Michel, Saint Michael. So let's see how many people know their religious text or mythology. There is Saint Michael. What is Saint Michael doing in this statue? Throw a coin in. Yeah, you can throw a coin in the fountain and make a wish. So on a hot summer day, these fountains are very nice. And we have fountains all over Paris like this. If you go to Rome, you see many fountains. Not just the famous Trevi fountain, but there's fountains everywhere. Why Paris never sleeps. It's 12 a.m. People should go home now. So yeah, so like New York, more so in New York. What time is it? Is it midnight? I don't even know the time. Can somebody tell me what time it is? But I'll take your word for it. Maybe it is midnight. So that's not unusual. Yeah, people stay out late and do things, especially on a Saturday night. Some of these places are open 24/7. In Canada, there's a dish poutine is with gravy and cheese. That's right. So it's a Canadian dish. It's actually a Québécois dish, which has meat and gravy and cheese, bean curds, I think, right? That restaurant across the street right there, that is open 24/7. So doesn't matter what time of day and night you come, that place is always open. So if you get hungry at 3 or 4 in the morning, or you just want to have a drink 3 or 4 in the morning, you can go over there. It's open 24/7. And there are a few places in this neighborhood that are also 24/7. And if you go down a few blocks that way, there's another neighborhood where they have several 24/7 places to eat and drink. And then there's also places that are open to like 4 or 5 in the morning. Are you a Toronto fan or a Quebec fan? So I like Toronto a lot. I like Montreal a lot. And I like Quebec City a lot. So they're all a little bit different. But you can definitely have a lot of fun in all of those 3 cities. Even though they have different atmospheres. So Quebec City in particular is very much like a old style European city. It's the only walled city left in North America. So it still has a wall around it, just like Paris used to have a wall around it. And the architecture is very European. Montreal has a mix of styles. So it has some things that are very modern and very North American in style. But it also has lots of areas that are very European, especially what's called Old Montreal, which, as the name implies, has older architecture and style, and that part is very European. They have a casino, and the nightlife in general in Montreal is really good. They have what's called joie de vivre. Even in English, it's called joie de vivre. So they just have like a lot of fun, and they're very friendly people. And Toronto, of course, major metropolitan city, also a lot of fun, and has so many interesting aspects. We switched to summertime last weekend. That's right. So we are 6 hours ahead of New York now, because we did switch to summertime last weekend, about 3 weeks after the Americans switched to summertime. So Europe all switches now at the end of March, and the Americans switch in early March. We used to all switch at the same time, but then the Americans decided they wanted more of this summertime. They're like, this is a good thing, let's have more of it. So they started starting it earlier and also ending it later. So they start earlier than we do, summertime, and they end it earlier. We just came out of daylight savings last night. Where is that? Last night. Where did you come out of daylight savings last night? Where in the world are you? Gas on the brain. I'm a little confused. Did it 3 weeks ago. Because it should have been last week for the Europeans and should have been 3 or 4 weeks ago for the Americans. Layla, my name is Stephen. Hero, have you heard the rumor about old ladies and young men in the restaurant La Coupole? You might have to tell me about those rumors. New Zealand. Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to have to look that up. Wow. So New Zealand apparently has a whole different system. So yeah, I have to look that up. And it makes sense because so New Zealand, being in the southern hemisphere, has summer at the opposite time of North America. So while we're having winter, they're having summer, and vice versa. So it makes sense that they ended their summertime. So I guess that means in New Zealand, you set your clocks an hour back, which is interesting because we're setting ours an hour forward. Southern hemisphere, like Australia too, and some states don't do. Yeah, so there are many states in the world that don't do summertime, and there are many states which used to do summertime, which no longer do them. So Russia is one of them. Russia no longer does summertime. The European Union had voted to stop doing summertime, and we were about to implement it, and then COVID hit. So it was delayed because of COVID, and we still haven't gotten rid of it. And I think it's going to be a little, even though it's been agreed to, like overwhelmingly, let's ditch the summertime, it's going to cause a lot of issues and problems because it's not clear how do you ditch it. Some people want to ditch it by having summertime year-round and never setting the clocks back or forwards again. And other people want to have regular time year-round. And so that is going to cause issues. Whereas right now we're all in the same time zone right now. If we stop doing summertime, there is a danger that we're all going to be on different time zones, and it could make things very complicated. It's just like a restaurant, by the way, at Wonka's, not a brothel. Yes, it is a restaurant, so I have to find out about that. But we have some interesting restaurants. Cupcake, you might know the story. There is a restaurant just down this street here that is very famous. It used to have, like a couple hundred years ago, it used to be a place where gentlemen could go to, basically to get away from their wives. And they have cute like little rooms and different floors and stuff. And there would be ladies that worked there at the restaurant. And you could enjoy the company of one of these women. So it's very famous. And this club has a lot of mirrors on the ground floor. And if you go in there, there are a lot of scratches on the mirrors. So can anybody guess why are there scratches on the mirrors? Can anybody guess? Now, it has something to do with the fact that I mentioned to you that gentlemen would go there to get away from their wives and spend some time with these women who would give them the pleasure of their company for the night. So why would there be scratches on the mirrors on the wall? So the mirrors are on the wall. So somebody said stilettos. It's not because of stilettos. I like that guess. But think about what kind of things can scratch glass and what kind of things would be prevalent in a place like this. Oh, let's walk over to Notre Dame, and then I think I'll end the broadcast over there. We'll go take a closer look at Notre Dame, and then I'm going to hop on the metro and go home. Diamonds, says Terry. Terry D24. Evelyn says diamonds. You guys are 100% correct. Those scratches are from diamonds. So why would people take diamonds and scratch the mirrors with them? What would be the reason to do that? Who is doing that and why? So you guys are 100% correct. You get full points for that. It was diamonds. But who is scratching the diamonds on the windows and why? Or not on the windows, but on the mirrors. Why? Why do you do this? Oh my God, you're right. You were 100% right. These are diamonds. But now we're getting closer. Who's got the diamonds? And why are they bothering to scratch these diamonds on the mirrors? What is the purpose of that? And who is doing that? Why? Test to see if it's a two-way mirror. Wonka, you are 50% correct. It was a test. It's not a test to see if it's a two-way mirror, though, but it is a test. Euro, are there XXX adult supercenters in Paris? So yes, there is a part of Paris that has a lot of sex shops. It's called Pigalle. It's over by the Moulin Rouge. And if you go over there, you will see a lot of sex shops on the street, and they're advertised. Possible for bartender certain items of use. Test to see if the diamonds were real, says Cupcake. And that is a correct answer. So what would happen is these gentlemen would frequently give the women diamonds as a gift or as in payment or appreciation for a time well spent. They would give them diamonds as a gift. And then the women would often take the diamonds and scratch the mirror to see, are these real diamonds? Or is the guy trying to pull a fast one on me with fake diamonds? So you can still see the scratches to this day. Love your answer. You guys had great answers. So yeah. So I was so surprised. I took a tour of that place once, and they explained the whole history behind it. And if you go to it, it's very interesting because it's like a maze inside. It's like a labyrinth. There's all these staircases in different directions that go to all these different rooms on different floors. And some of the rooms are small, some of the rooms are big, and they have, tables for dining. And a lot of the rooms, for whatever reason, also happen to have a bed. I guess in case you get tired when you're eating and drinking, and if you want to lay down for a moment, they have a little bed or they have a little couch that can serve as a bed. She's got to be pretty good to be worthy of a diamond. Yes. So this would have been like a fancy gentleman's club. And And diamonds are, a good way to make payment. Marijuana and brothels are illegal in France. Yeah, that's a good point. So we have a strange thing in France because brothels have been illegal for a very long time. I don't even know how long, but very, very long. But for the longest time in France, prostitution was legal. So you could be a prostitute legally, no problem, no issue, right? Completely 100% legal. But what was illegal were brothels and proxenation. So proxenation was illegal, but prostitution was legal. And so there were many women that, that was their profession. They were prostitutes. But you could not proxenate. Proxenation, completely illegal. Always, well, as long as I know, for a very long time, it's always been illegal. And it's still, proxenation is still illegal. And then there's been a very curious thing that's been happening throughout Europe. Europe is sort of divided on the issue about whether or not prostitution should be legal or not. So in some places it's legal, and in some places it's illegal. But even in the places where it's illegal, the tendency has been to make it illegal, not for the prostitutes, but illegal for what's called the Johns. So it's illegal for the customer, but not for the sex worker. So the sex worker is not committing any crime when they engage in prostitution. But if you're a customer, if you're a purchaser of the service, you are committing a crime. So those are just in the places where it's illegal. Some places it's just legal. But it's an interesting attitude that's been developing in Europe, which is why punish the sex workers who are often forced into this situation through trafficking or fall into this situation because of difficult times or hard times, or they're being exploited. And if you want to make it illegal, punish the customers versus punishing the workers. Periscopes, those were the days. Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Same like Thailand, despite we think actual prostitution is legal, you instead pay for a company of the women. Yeah, so a lot of places try to get around prostitution laws and stuff by hiring escorts. So you're not paying for any sexual service, you're paying for the company of the women. And so that can be sort of a legal way around this issue. And they have escort services in most Western countries as well as some Eastern countries. Good Europe, I didn't think of the trafficking. Yeah, it's a very complicated issue when you get into prostitution, and so people feel wildly different about the subject for different reasons. So I think there's a lot of arguments, but I think if you are against it from a legal viewpoint, to me it makes a lot of sense to punish the buyers of the service because they're the ones that create the demand and who effectively are benefiting from the service, where for the most part the sex workers sort of getting the raw end of the deal in the transaction. So they have some seating here in front of Notre Dame. So guys, I think I'm going to close the scope here. Here's Notre Dame Cathedral. Mitch Oates, underwater. Yeah, I mentioned Mitch earlier. So Mitch was one of the great pioneers in the early days of Periscope, this Twitter-owned live streaming platform that some of you may not be familiar with. And Mitch was the first person to do underwater live streams on the platform. And they were brilliant. I mean, they were really beautiful to watch. Good night, Euro. Thank you. Well, good night, Terry. Thank you and everyone else for being here. I really enjoyed it. There's Notre Dame. You can see more and more of the scaffolding is going away, and some of these cranes are going away. And so By the end of the year, in December of this year, Notre Dame will be open to the public again. These walls will come tumbling down like the walls of Jericho. The tent will come down and we'll be able to go inside once again. Once it's open to the public, I will live stream from inside. Make sure Cupcake to message Euro for future streaming together. Thank you very much. Yeah, Cupcake, please do message me. I would love to do some live streams with you. Like I said before, I had a really good time with you and Steve. And yeah, we could do it again. And who knows, maybe Steve will even come back someday. Thank you, Euro Maestro, for the stream. Mod supporters all in the chat. Awesome stream. Have a wonderful day, night. Have all weekend. Yes, good night, everyone. I'll see some of you in a couple of hours after I get something to drink and eat. I'll see some of you on my X live space. If you're interested in talking about the news, it'll be a little different than this broadcast. We'll be talking about news items and political items if you're into politics. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. And thank you guys once again. Bye from Notre Dame.